go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is 5:04 p.m. We'll do roll call. Ms. Dean?
Present.
Vice President Begay?
Present.
Myself present. Secretary Terrazas?
Present.
Mr. Guadiana?
Present.
Okay. Our student rep is here as well. Mireya? Here? Okay. Our board norms?
Actively listen to all perspectives.
Close the loop, responding to concerns and questions as a unified board.
Model the professionalism we expect from all members of the district and community. Customer service orientation.
Assume positive intent.
Be positive and responsive.
Thank you. The Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, that moves us on to our student representatives report.
On Friday, the football team will play Ruidoso at Ruidoso. The cross-country team is having their Cobre Invitational on the 16th. Volleyball's JV team plays reserve on Tuesday, and then C-team, JV, and varsity play Chaparral on Thursday. Volleyball will also have their first home game on Saturday. Key Club is having a meeting on Thursday and organizing a trash pickup around the school on Friday. The senior class is having a meeting on Tuesday before school to discuss senior trip. Student Council is having a meeting after school on Wednesday to discuss homecoming, along with MESA also having a meeting on Wednesday.
Thank you, Mireya. That moves us on to action items. A, approval of agenda items.
Any changes?
So, Madam President, members of the board, I need to make one change on Superintendent's report. We would like to move item G up behind E.
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda with the one item of moving G after E.
Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. That moves us on to item 3B, approval of regular board meeting minutes of August 28, 2023.
Got a correction needs to be made on number 11 on the adjournment.
The correction is that Mr. Terrazas voted both to introduce the motion and to adjourn, and then seconded it. He would not let anybody else talk.
Do you remember who made the motion or who
I think
seconded?
I did.
Gilbert.
There was just three of us.
Madam President, I move that we approve the regular board meeting minutes as of August 28, 2023 with that correction be made.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. That moves us on to item 3C, approval of first reading of amended board policies A0350, A0400, B-0025, E3100, and J1050.
Madam President, I move that we approve the first reading of amended board policies as stated.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion?
I have a comment. Glad to see all of them up and it's posted, and it's easy to find. So that was well done. The only thing I'd like to request is the part that we have before us here, it says policy B 2600. It prescribes what is being done, and I'd like to see that posted along with amended, the ones that are going to be changed, as well as a contact for submitting their changes, if they have any changes they want to make, whether it be online or by phone.
So you mean if someone has a comment to make, how
Yes.
to do so?
Yes.
Okay. And can we have that, like, on the website, first thing you see? Yeah, okay.
If we post this along with the other ones, I think this will be a good leader to that, and then include the contact information there. That should suffice.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. Maybe I was. Okay, more to, I get to it like that. There we go.
Okay, so, so we'll take that, Mr. Guadiana's input to put contact information on there. Is there any other discussion? No? Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. That moves us on to item 3D, approval of budget transfer 24346, IDEA ARP.
Okay, I do have a budget transfer in front of you that I had sent it out to the Finance Committee in an email earlier because we didn't have a chance to review it through the Finance Committee. This is just kind of an urgent one that came up. So what this one is for is we have some grant funds that need to be spent by September 30th of this year. And what it's for is for special ed funding. And what I'm going to be doing is using it to expend everything that we would have spent out of the 24-106 and 24-109 entitlement and preschool grants for special ed, and just spend them now out of this grant funding. So that's what, when I had built the budget, I had just put everything in supplies and materials because there wasn't a plan on how it was to be spent. And it's going to be spread throughout this budget for some salaries of IAs and the salary of the special ed secretary, which is what we're already spending out of those funds. So that's what this budget adjustment request is for, to spend those funds.
Were there other input on the suggestions of how to spend it?
You know, I sent it to the Finance Committee, and what we're doing, we already have a budget in place for those two budgets, and I'm just going to be using this for in order to liquidate these funds. It had been put on we did have a budget in place for it last year, but it was never used. So I think I might as well use it instead of letting it go.
But did the special education program have input?
Yes, they did. They did last year, but it wasn't used.
We have a new program director.
Right.
Was it their input as well?
Yeah, they put their input into building the budget for the 24-106 and 24-109. And we're just going to use this in place of, because it's such a short notice, we're only given to September 30th to spend these funds.
Okay.
And we had discussed in finance if it was an urgent budget adjustment request, everything that he could send via email, and no one responded on the email thread.
Right, correct. But yeah, I did send it out last week to the Finance Committee.
last question I have, is the total available funding is 63,925, but yet the final line on the bar is 2,677.
Those are the indirect costs.
Okay. So how did this roll out? The total expenditure is this, usually that's the, something that
No,
we can
this is,
tie.
these are transfers, so they're gonna wash. You're gonna take from one line item and move to another line item, so it's a wash. That's why the document total is 0. This isn't a budget increase, this isn't anything, these are just transfers, going from one line item to another, from one function to another.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I move that we approve the budget transfer 24346, IDEA ARP.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. That moves us on to item 4, Finance Committee report.
Madam President, we did not meet. It was an error on my part. I didn't realize that we were supposed to meet right after the Labor Day holiday, so I did email all our Finance Committee members, and we're going to be meeting on September 19th. And it looks like it's going to be a lengthy agenda.
I guess I have one request. I'm not sure if I made this before. If the information that's going out to the Finance Committee, can it go to all the board members, just so we see it ahead of time as well?
Is that okay, Mr. Ryan?
Yes, we could do that. What we could do is the agenda and the packets that we email out, we could email them to everybody. That's a
Okay.
great idea.
Yeah, I'd appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that way you guys can see what we're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice President Begay.
You're welcome.
That moves us on to number 5, our Audit Committee report.
We were supposed to be scheduled to have a meeting this Wednesday. However, that wasn't posted on time, and Mr. Ryan has made contact with Jaramillo Group, and we're in agreement to schedule it on Wednesday. Is that the 20th? Okay. We are out of compliance with having monthly meetings during the audit process. We had evidently it was referred to as an open conference for the current audit for the last year. And at that point, we're supposed to have monthly ones with, I was under the impression we still hadn't had the entrance conference with them. And so we're at 1 month deficit of not having meetings. We'll make sure that we're more in line with this. And we now have the proper language to put the parts that deal with the audits in executive session, as we're supposed to. And then the rest of it we'll have in open session, which are like for status of submitting, of submittals, any other questions that we have on any other funds that are not directly related. Well, they're more related to this year's funds as opposed to last year's. So we'll go forward with that next, on the 20th.
And I guess I have a clarifying question. I know we didn't do our audit last year because we're doing the special audit, and it's about time to start doing the fiscal year that just ended. I'm worried about being so far behind with our audits.
As soon as we get the special audit done, then we're gonna move on to these other ones. That's what we'll bring up in our upcoming audit committee meeting. We need to put an agenda together, and we're gonna ask what the status of our special audit is, so we get moving on this last one, which I'm already working on, the 2022. I am submitting documents to them right now. But yeah, we're getting it moving. We're getting the ball rolling on those.
Well, Madam President, this was also discussed in finance about them billing, because we hadn't seen anything that they've billed us so
Right, and
far.
we did receive one in the meantime after we spoke.
Okay. And then I know they had concerns about the duration of or the length of the audit as well. And I think it's because they keep finding more and more stuff, but I don't know, have people in the audit committee been asking more questions or asking for things to be added to the audit?
We've not added anything to the original scope, and a lot of it has been in terms of not being able to obtain information like, or obtaining information that is of significant quantity, and that usually deals with the emails that were related especially to the capital outlay project for the football fields and the baseball fields. But no, we haven't added anything to that yet.
Okay, thank you.
And the other part too is that only affects the 21, 22 year. It doesn't affect this last year. So we still have the deadline of November 15th for the 22-23 school year. And I'm as worried as you are about making that deadline.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so that moves us on to item 6, board members report. I guess one thing I want to bring up is we have our regional NMSBA conference next Tuesday, I believe, September 19th in Deming. 26th? Oh, okay, good. If you can RSVP to Charlene, if you're planning on going to that. And that's all I have. Does anyone else have anything to report?
I think we're going to go each individually. So.
Oh. Vice President Begay, you have anything? Secretary Teresa?
Yeah, on Friday afternoon, I had an opportunity to go to Hurley Elementary, and they had their ABC boot camp. I thought that was awesome, you know, have the kinders go through their school, and really it involved all the students at Hurley Elementary, and it also shows the camaraderie that the fifth graders all the way to the 3Y and the 4Y, how they interact. And so that was an awesome feat for Hurley Elementary, and the ABC boot camp. I was really impressed. Again, got a chance to travel to Santa Teresa on Friday night, and boys, they come out victorious and had an awesome game on Friday night, getting ready to go to Ruidoso this Friday. That's it.
Mr. Guadiana?
I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting last week, and it had to do with the presentation by P&M of their new economic development specialist. And she is she came from Los Alamos, where she was really involved in putting together the plan to bring in Amazon to build a warehouse there. So she's done some incredible things, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do here in southern New Mexico. I did talk to her about the requests for the funds that we're trying to get for building a new high school. And also I talked to her about the innovations programs to see about internships and things like that, but also to have them involved in the development of the schematics for the high school. So she's very excited about doing that. Also in attendance was a lady, Laura, I don't remember her last name, from Chino. Yeah, she was there, and she had given us a presentation on the funding as it comes in from their production tax. And our capital outlay plan, our 5-year capital outlay plan, shows that we're going to be in declining enrollment for the next several years, which will affect the size of the building that we may be requesting. However, the mines are expecting expansion and growth in the workforce. So when I'm trying to compile the data so we can argue that it's not going to be in decline. We're going to need, we have right now 370-some students in the high school, I believe.
Sounds too high. Yeah.
277? Oh, my goodness. So the numbers, trying to argue for closer to 500 students, and we'll be able to adjust that according to what it is. Chino says that they're going to be bringing in as an additional workforce. So did that. Also, I met with Turrieta, with Raul Turrieta, our deputy assessor. He showed me the numbers that was predicted from the copper production funds, and more particularly, we went over the bond issues and making sure that we were at 10%. There was one fund that was a little bit lower than what it should be, so he's trying to remedy that with the state auditor and making sure that we are at the 10 point. And they assure me that that is going to be the case, the 10 mil amount. And I will be attending the New Mexico Association of School Businesses Organizations on starting Wednesday through Friday this week.
Thank you, Mr. Guadiana. Lisa, do you have anything to report?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay, thank you. So that moves us on to item 7, Superintendent's report.
Madam President, members of the board, first, A, B, and C are all going to deal with the athletic directors, so I'm going to turn the time over to Mr. Sanchez.
Madam President, members of the board, good evening. First thing I'd like to do is that I came for a nap. I was hoping I did it correctly, but I highlighted some things to be put into your packet about the MMA and the middle school, like our bylaws on the middle school. And so I don't know why people haven't asked yet, but I would like for our 6th graders to be able to participate in the sports that we're able to participate in. Right now, according to MMA law, our bylaws, they cannot participate in football, and they probably won't ever be able to, as 6th graders, participate. But all the other sports and activities that we offer, I would like for our 6th graders to maybe participate, because that way we get, last year, from my understanding, is we didn't have, we had only an 8th grade basketball team, and there wasn't a 7th grade, so maybe getting more kids involved might help with our grades, might help with participation and doing things like that. So they would still have to follow all the bylaws of the NMA. That would also take away our clean slate, which means that when a 6th grader, right now our 6th graders have a clean slate going into 7th grade, like to play football. What that means is they could have as many Fs or as many bad grades as they want, and that would take, and they're able still to participate because they have a clean slate going into 7th. That may hurt us a little bit, but it might help our kids to know that we got to concentrate on grades, and they'll be able to participate and have that to look forward to. So then that would mean that only 5th graders coming into our school year next year would have the clean slate, and they wouldn't, girls would be able to participate in volleyball, and then, if boys and girls would like to participate in cheerleading, then they would be able to do that as a clean slate. Like I said, football, they wouldn't be able to. Basketball starts after the first quarter is over, so then they would have to have a 2.0 no Fs in order to be eligible for our sports program.
So, Madam President, I had a question about the approval. Did it need to be an action item, or was it just a more informational item? Because I saw the email that was sent, and it said board approval, so I was a little confused by that.
I don't believe the board has to approve it. I think it falls under the scope of responsibility of the superintendent. So that's why I moved it to more of an informational item.
Okay.
And I think it's great to get those 6th graders motivated and hopefully get their grades. And I know the teachers at Snell are very accommodating to help students with their grades and get them raised. So one more incentive.
Mr. Sanchez, does this affect eligibility later on?
As far as,
Because don't they have so many years of eligibility?
no, because no sixth to seventh grader would be able to play at the high school level. Only eighth graders are able to participate at the high school level. So they have, technically we have 4 years to play, 4 or 5 years to play the 5 years. As eighth graders are able to play, and they would have the 5 years of eligibility.
Okay.
So sixth and seventh graders, they would never be able to move up to high school level as far as being able to participate as an athlete in C team or on up to varsity.
And do we have any other schools that have done this?
I believe that, like, for instance, Cliff, that's the only way they, and I know they're single A, but Cliff says that's the only way they make their basketball teams is to have sixth graders participate. And, of course, they don't have as many, even though we're not quite that much ahead of them, they don't have as many students that we do, and that's the way they get there. I feel like all the middle schools that have, that are housed the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, they do let their sixth graders participate. And that's why it said, like in the bylaws, as long as the board approves to let them participate, they're able to.
Okay.
So back to that question, Mr. Sanchez, was nobody in the southwest in our hatch, in our district is doing that currently, that you're aware of?
That I'm aware of. I think we're the only, I could be mistaken, but like La Plata is only seventh and eighth grade. I think Hatch is seventh and eighth grade. They're not, their sixth graders are housed in the elementary still. So I think that makes a difference of if they can
Or they're-
participate or not, So now that we house our kids at Snell and they're in the middle school, then I think if we allow them to participate, it might help us to, with the clean slate and make them aware that, hey, grades are important. Then we might not have as many seventh graders that struggle like we had when I looked over eligibility for, well, I couldn't not let them play because they had the clean slate for football. But, we do have quite a bit of athletes that if they were sixth grade, if this rule was here last year, those seventh graders may not be participating because they didn't have the 2.0 without one or less F.
I know you have a regular athletic director's virtual meeting, physical, face-to-face meeting. Maybe that's something we could ask and report back, just for our region, or even AAA and below, or something, just to say that, hey, we're.
Okay, yeah, I can look at that and I can text our district and see if that's the case with them.
Thank you.
One question. The policies that we just put up for reading, still not in effect, but they're done because the state has changed the laws so that now we become compliant with their requirements. And one of those policies is the non-discrimination related to reproductive, gender, and personal health care. And you mentioned that the municipal AA has that provision where they will go by the birth certificate. That would be then in violation of the new policy and the law. Is there going to be an effort to use on it, so that's going to change the conformity of the law?
To my knowledge, I don't believe so. They, on the very first, and I can look it up, but on the very first introductory of that's how they do stated is that an athlete will compete in the sports allowed that is on their birth certificate. And so I think with unfairness of things that could happen, like for instance, the game of volleyball, if we have, males and females playing together, then the height of the net has to go up. That's one case. A lot of the things that we go over with the athletic rules, or athletic director rules, is making sure our 14 points of safety is that, that we're not putting kids out in harm's way of, so maybe putting an athlete against a male athlete against a female athlete might make it an unfair advantage, and it's a point of safety if that has the NMA secret.
And I believe with the NMAA, if you can get a modified birth certificate, and then they would be able to play,
Right,
correct?
I believe that would be the only way that they'd be able to do that, is if they modify according to the NMA right now that I'm aware of. If they do go through and get their birth certificate modified, then That's what says it's on their birth certificate, and that's what they would be allowed to play on.
And that is all prior to the passage of this new law, which we're trying to incorporate into our policy. And the law states non-discrimination on the basis of gender identity. So what you're mentioning are it may be in conflict with what the new law is, and they may not be in line with that, and that's.
And that would be our lot in our school district?
No, this is the New Mexico
New
state
Mexico state law?
statutes, yeah, New Mexico state statute is what was changed.
Then I would imagine that the NMA was gonna have to look into their policies and bylaws and may have to make an adjustment. We haven't gone over any of that as far as in our AD meetings or anything, but that would be something if it's, just like, for instance, right now, we have to have all our coaches, it's a law that just barely passed, and I'm finding out with some of our coaches right now that they let their license expire, or their license have to be renewed. Well, they have to have AED, and they have to have CPR certifications before they can even, in the past, all you had to do was pay your fee to get your license renewed, and so now they have to provide certification of AED and CPR before they allow them to even get their coach's license back to them. So that would be something that they would have to look into, I imagine, if that's how we're changing, like, that law there, that's why we went through and we had to get our coaches as soon as possible, AED and CPR certified for our fall sports, because that was a requirement by our state legislature to put that into effect, not even the NMA. So that could be way different.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Just maybe, Mr. Sanchez, if you can reach out to see what other districts are doing about that issue, maybe larger districts, how they're handling that with the NMAA.
And I think with what I know from that little factor that's on the bylaw is that is what's stated now. Of course, going into this school year is how we would have to do it. It's just that, that is what's stated, that whatever certificate, whatever gender they say on their certificate, that's what they're able to participate in. And there may, like I said, we're gonna have to look at, once the law changes, and I'm sure the NMA will have to, change their bylaw.
Thank you.
Do you want to go on to the update on the softball bleachers?
I mean, really, need a little help with this. What we did, we talked with AK, I believe, is the business out of Roswell, that they came in and gave us they're going to give us a quote on the softball bleachers. We're looking at getting, if you guys are familiar with, kind of they're gonna be raised up, and the grandstand with the press box up on top, and they're gonna have chair backs on our main grandstand that would go right behind home plate. I asked for a quote on an 8 bleacher, very familiar or similar to like the ones that are at Silver on their baseball field, to be able to, on our first base side, we could use the 2 remaining bleachers that are in our field right now and put them there, because there's a building that the softball team uses as storage. And so I don't think, we would either have to move that or tear it down in order to put more bleachers in. In fact, the contractor today asked if they had to cut into the mountain, would it be okay to make those bleachers fit? And they asked if we had the nets, which we do for the batting cages already. So that's the update on that. We're waiting for the quote. We just met with them last Thursday, and we took footage, we'll probably need cement, things like that, and work on it so that we can get our softball bleachers up here by the start of this season in March.
I have a question on that as well. That field is particularly difficult for ADA access, and I'm wondering if anything is being considered for the bleachers as well as potentially for access to the bleachers.
Right, so with the cement and the bleachers, we made a walkway, we asked them to make our quote back so that way we could get a walkway there, and then the bleachers that we did ask them to give us a quote on are ADA compliant, so that there's a ramp so that people can be wheeled up onto that. If, you know, the bad part is the dirt and things around that they're gonna, because we can't park really close there at the softball field, but if they can get moved up that way, then there is gonna be a way to get the ramp, to a ramp on both sides of the main grandstand to be able to move up and wheelchair a person up to that, to our grandstand. So they would probably sit in front and make that handicap accessible.
So until that happens, and this, is there parking available so they could park along the fence line that would make that?
Yeah, it does come, first come, first serve. I don't think, we do need to do better. I know at the baseball field, there is bleachers that, or there's actual signage out there that says handicap accessible. I don't remember seeing it out at the softball field, but this is me coming in from outside looking in. But we may have to put and designate a few areas that would be like some signage, just like you do at the baseball field, to make sure that these are you know, handicap accessible. Maybe the ones in right field that are by the bathroom, so that way they could be pushed out and do that over there. The bad part about that is where the most gravel is, also in that parking lot area. So I know it's gonna be difficult for people to get there, but that would be our best solution right now.
And we could work on that later as it goes on. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Mr. Sanchez, do you know how much, with the new bleachers, how many people can sit down in the stands? The capacity?
Probably close to, I believe with the 8 bleacher, if I'm not mistaken, I think he said about there'll be 200 or so in that area. And then I kind of, and in the main grandstand, it's probably gonna be close to over 100 and some people. I just wanted to make sure I wanted the visitor side, just to make sure that we separated visitor side from the home side a little bit, so that way that's what. And then we'll have the other bleachers on the side. There's 4 bleachers actually out there right now, so the other 2 we can put into the outfield to kind of make it a little bit more accessible out there to use those, rather than just them go away, you know. So there's 3 out there right now in left, center, and right field. So if we put them in the gaps, that would just be that much more seating that we could have out there for them.
Thank you. And is there shade covers also coming with those bleachers, or?
Actually, we asked them to give us a quote on shade covering because we are asking for red chairback seats that will be in the grandstand. So they fade if they're out in the sun. So he asked, and we asked them if they would put within the quote that second line item, like, hey, this is for shade, this is for the bleachers, this is for the ones I want for the visitors. So he's going to make them 3 different quotes kind of in one, to make sure, like, well, we can cut out this one if it's too much, or like that. But we do want to shade it over the grandstand to make sure that those chairbacks don't get weather beaten or sun beaten right away.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And update on the new signage at the baseball field. So, what we talked about, and one of the things, I think one of the items that, of course, this is from Javier Morales Stadium, is the sign when they did the new renovation to our backstop, the net, they took off like a chain link, so that sign is pretty heavy. You can't hang it off the net or else it'll bring it down. But what is looking pretty bad is just they're like really sun beaten and faded if you go by in the championship banners that we put up there. So I think we did get a quote of $2,100 to replace just they're kind of the final championship banners that are there. The main sign, which probably when it first was built was probably close to $8,000 to build, we do have to cover a corner because of there's our old logo, our Chief Wahoo, which we're no longer using. we're gonna have to put something in that corner as maybe something to tack on, like just a piece of, I don't know, steel or something, a corner there, make sure we put a new picture up that is more, friendly, or we're taking away that Chief Wahoo, that logo. And so we're gonna have to, we got a quote for, we're gonna get quotes for that, to maybe get a new picture in that corner. And it's probably, the corner's probably about as big as the podium, maybe a little bit wider. And we have to cover that, because the paint's chipping off, so you can see the Chief Wahoo. And, but I don't think we need to, place that sign, because one, I think it'd be way too expensive, and two, you know, the person that did make it for us has since passed, and I think, you know, keeping with tradition and things like that, I think that might hurt more families than, you know, taking away the sign of the person that, you know, who didn't make it for us, so.
Yeah, I think, when I talked to Howie 8 months ago, we talked about just replacing that Chief, Wahoo with our current emblem that's on the turf now, and that'd be sufficient.
I think so. And I think we even had we have like the logo that we put on our graduation with the mountain and the sea, and there's a nice image with the headdress. I think it's right there in that. Maybe if we could get that made, that would be something we could put right there on the side, and take away that Chief Wahoo and just tack it on. I can drag a field and that's about it, but if we can tack it and do that, that would, you know, cover up that.
Mr. Sanchez, is there something we can do like long-term with the state championship pennants? Like instead of replacing them every year or every so often because they get hit by the sun, can we move them to a different location, or can we have a more long-term solution?
I think maybe if we could look into maybe shading it, like we're doing with the thing, like maybe, you know, covering, like making that little, you know, trophy case like we have, and make it go out that way, or maybe where the sun is covered off of that, maybe would be one way. The only thing about it is that there's no really where on the field that we can move that display in order for our community to see it, as far as like when they drive by. And, you know, that's kind of what, in the thinking when I was baseball coach, and maybe Lieutenant Governor Morales, is that we wanted that to be the pride of the Bayard community. As soon as you drive in, you know, the first thing you see is smell to your right, and then the second thing you should see is our, you know, our championship banners to brag a little bit about our, you know, how good our baseball team is and things. I wish if our softball team was, if our field was on the highway, you know, we'd have to make something like that, because we do have, you know, 11 championships compared to 7 in softball, so that would be a way to display it for the community. I think we do an injustice if we put it down in the outfield, or if we put it somewhere else, then we're not gonna be able to see it if we go off the highway. People won't be able to do that. So that's the thinking behind it being there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Excuse me, Madam President and board members and Superintendent Curry. Can I give you a little bit of information on some of this stuff that he covered? On the batting cages, they're going to start Wednesday morning on those and get those put in fairly quickly. On the coverage for the sign, we could probably put an awning pretty easily over the top of that to help block some of the sun on that. We have Mr. Begay at the high school who has designed a logo of sorts. It's the C, and then in the bottom part of the C, it's like a mural of the kneeling nun in the bottom of the C. It's really kind of a pretty logo that he's designed. So we're looking at other options for what to cover that with. Do you guys want to see the options when we're getting closer to doing that?
Yes, and I kind of had a suggestion at Silver High, in their gym. They have big, huge, signs with the logo. Then they have the state championship, state runner-up, district champion. I think something like that would work at the baseball field. Something more long-term, and if there's more state championships, more district championships, we can just add the year to it. And it doesn't have to be that smaller of a size, but we can maybe get something bigger so we have it long-term and we're not having to replace, every so often. That was my suggestion.
Do you know when those were placed up there, the ones that are currently there?
At Silver High, I'm not sure.
No, the ones that are here.
Oh,
Do you know?
I'm not sure when those were placed.
Okay. Do you have any idea, Artie?
During our renovation, when the renovation came up, well, they were up there since 2014 was the last time that we bought all the signs, because that was the last time we won state. So those were up on the backstop. And so we barely did our renovation 5 years ago. So they've been in that about 4.5 years ago to be where they're at right now.
Okay,
So it took a little bit after they did the field to put them up.
okay.
One last, I know, I'm sorry, last thing on our softball stadium, I know, we do, when they did the scoreboards, I've been getting a lot of comments about that it is Tom Power Stadium, and we need to, so we are going to put, so the people that are listening, we are going to put the signage back up, or find a way to honor, Mr. Powers on there, so that way we can put a sign up as we go up. I figure on the press box, where there's a fence, because we will want our camera people to be up there, so for safety, on that fence, we will put Tom Powers, Stadium up on there again, so that way people have asked, how come it's not up there right now? So that's something we need to take care of, and that's one of the things they asked me to make sure I do, so we will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for the updates. So it moves us on to the New Mexico Vista scores.
So if you guys look in your board packets, we provided you, let me grab it so you know what you're looking at. So New Mexico Vista came out this year, and all the schools received designations. And you can go on to the NMPD website, but there's another site for anyone that would like to get more information on it that steers you to newmexicovistas.org. And you can get full report cards for any of the schools in the state. For our 6 schools here in our district, all of our schools received traditional as their designation or higher. And so schools receiving that need no support or improvement. And so they scored at a level that does not need improvement at this time. The only thing that's interesting about these is the data that they used for this came from the 1920 school year, which I do not understand why that is. But as a principal, former principal, I don't know why they would use data that old to do this process. As a complement, though, in the 1920 data, one of our schools received the Spotlight School, being San Lorenzo Elementary School. I don't know who the principal was of that place at that time, but I recommend that you guys take them out to dinner, whoever that was. But they did an amazing job. So kudos to our San Lorenzo Elementary School receiving Spotlight School, and congratulations to all of our schools being designated as traditional schools or higher. So I'm not sure where the state was coming from on this. You can read the reports. It covers many different areas. But in talking to other districts in our state, I'm very pleased with all of our designations, because I know not all the schools were lucky enough to do as well as our district did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
was wondering about the 2019, 2020. That's ages ago.
Well,
know.
I had attended a presentation on this, that's why I wanted it presented here at our board meeting. But I know the reason for the data is from the pandemic, and I guess there wasn't consistent data. I guess some schools were not doing the testing, and so that's the reason, because I asked that same question too, why is it such old data? So they're revamping this system, and it's in works at NMPED, so they're gonna have a better rubric and different guidelines coming down. So I'm looking forward to next year's scores.
Also have some comments. One is, this is the data that we need to incorporate into our budget process. We need to use the data and identify the areas for growth, identify the successes, and then work together with each individual school on developing a budget that furthers the education in those schools. So in that, a missing piece going forward, and certainly don't mean it to be something that was left out, but going forward, we would use this along with the student-teacher ratios, the usage of assistants in the classrooms, the curriculum, and special ed performance, and we build our budget based on that. So I'm happy to see that here. I would hope that this data gets put on the website so people can see the scores for each individual schools.
Thank you. So that moves us on to the beginning of the year testing data.
So I'm going to back up really quick. So the point that you're speaking of, each school is building a dash plan, NM dash plans. And I think what you're talking about is exactly their vision of that. And so there's 30, 60, 90-day plans that are going into effect in all of our schools right now. So it's kind of a hot topic right now because it's a lot of work. They're very intense plans. And so I think that kind of meets that vision that you're talking about. And I know the budget component piece is the one that's getting tied into that.
Good, good. And is there a ranking of the schools in the state?
Well, the only ranking right now would be what's on this,
Designation.
the vistas, yes.
Okay.
And the scoring is different, because you would think, you see 21, that'd be 21 percentile, but that's not necessarily how it's scored. So they're developing a rubric to show the measurements, because right now they don't have one.
So if you look down the scores here, San Lorenzo had a score of 47 and is a spotlight school. But according to the high school had a score of 49 and they're a traditional school. So it's showing that there's different criterias and the scoring systems for elementaries and high schools, of course, being different.
Okay.
But Mr. Guadiana, to speak to your point too, I agree about the budget coming from the school. When President Murillo and myself attended the School Board Association meeting, Lake MacArthur has a great procedure for building their budget and seeking input from those principals and individual school sites. So that's something I'd like to see for sure going forward.
And it's actually part of the statute for developing the budget, and also there's timeframes for different components of it to be done. So
Right.
we look forward to that.
So Ms. Chavita is going to do the update on BOY testing data, ELA and math.
Okay, good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Corey. I'm here to present tonight our testing update for our beginning of year scores. Let's see. So we're going to start with our iStation data. And I did put some trend data in there because sometimes BOY means really nothing if you don't have anything to compare it to. So I thought it would be interesting to look at our beginning of year data from last year and our end of year data from last year and then our beginning of year data from this year. And we're going to go ahead and take, let's see, reading, and we'll talk about that real quickly. So you've had time to study your data, I'm sure. And so really what I thought was interesting on the kindergarten one is that we did come in higher from beginning of year last year. So our kindergartners are at now 26% proficient. Compared to last year, they were at 21%. I'm not going to go ahead, I'm not going to talk about the schools. I'm just going to go ahead. I want the schools there for you to have that information, but I'll just talk about our district average. And so that means preschool's doing their job, right? So we do have some higher kindergartners this year, and they did make some exceptional growth. Last year they went to 62% proficient. And again, I did not put the state averages there because last year we did talk about that, and we were higher in all areas when it came to the state. And this year, I have reached out to PED numerous times because I wanted to get the BOI data from the state, and that's not available yet. So as soon as I get that, I'll pass that on to you all. And then in first grade, we are lower by 6% compared to last year, and then we are lower in second grade by 7%. So let's talk about our math. In kindergarten, again, we have higher this is in relation to the reading. It's the same. We do have a higher group of kinders, so they came in at 28% proficient, so 8% higher than last year. But look at the growth those kindergartners made at the end. They were able to pull off 72% proficient. That is remarkable. So hopefully this year we can maybe even get maybe 80% at EOY. And then you have your first grade. We are 16% lower than last year in the BOI, little concerning, but we did finish off the year last year at 75%. And then in second grade, we are neck and neck. Last year we were at 12%, and this year we're at 13% in second grade. So pretty much the same.
We need to replicate what's going on at Central and San Lo. Those are massive gains. See what's going on there.
Yes, it is massive gains. Check, check, it's working. Okay, now let's go ahead and go into IMASA. We'll go into the reading for third, fourth, and fifth. I went ahead and put the state average from last year because that state average is very easy to get. It's very handy. I don't have to call and email the state to get that. So it's on the report. So last year in third grade, we had Cobre at EOY 10% higher than the state in third grade in reading. This year for BOY, we are 5% higher than the state, but again, the testing window closes on October the 14th for IMASA, so much is going to change. But these were the scores from Thursday. And I know we had some makeups, so our scores are still changing as well. And then in fourth grade reading, we have EOY last year. We were 4% higher than the state at EOY. And this year for our BOY, we're 5% lower. But again, numbers are changing. 5th grade in reading. Yeah. Fifth grade in reading, we were 8% higher than the state in 5th grade at the end of the year. And this year, we're neck and neck. We're a little, like 2% higher than the state. Moving on to language, which is our grammar. We have 3rd grade was neck and neck last year with the state for language, and we were 1% higher than the state. And then we have our BOY data, and right now we are 7% higher than the state. And then we go to 4th grade. Last year we were 4% higher than the state at EOY for 4th grade. And this year, for beginning of year, we are at 4% higher than the state in 4th grade. And in 5th grade, last year at the end of the year, we were 9% higher than the state. And we are neck and neck right now with the state for our beginning of year data for 5th grade. We'll move on to math for 3rd, 4th, and 5th. This we have at EOY last year, we were 10% lower than the state. Talking about where to put our money, right? Okay, this is where you want to look. 10% lower than the state. When all the other areas, keep in mind, we were higher than the state. So beginning of year data, we were neck and neck this year. Then we have 4th grade, 9% lower than the state. Beginning of the year data, we are 2% lower than the state. Last year in 5th grade, we were 3% higher than the state. And then we have 2% lower than the state for our beginning of the year for 5th grade.
So I have a quick question.
Sure.
So this means that 2% of our 3rd graders are proficient
And which one?
in 3rd grade for the
In-
beginning of the year for Cobre?
I'm looking at 3rd grade, beginning of the year, Cobre.
2% in math.
Yes.
So that
2%,
means-
that's an average of 2% because San Lorenzo helped it there.
So that means 98% of our students are below grade level. in math.
Exactly. That's exactly what it means. Okay, let's go on to reading, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So this is our middle school. So middle school last year did MAPS. And the year before, they did IMASA. And now we're back to IMASA. And we had a big discussion on this, a very long discussion. And we thought it would be best to go back to IMASA because it's aligned with the elementary schools. And you can compare that data. So we went back to IMASA. We're going to stick with that for a while. And then we also have support with IMASA. We have a trainer that comes. His name is Greg Howell. And he has helped the teachers disaggregate the data and understand the test a lot better. Because I think they were, again, comfortable with what they knew, which was MAPS. And so with the help of Greg, I think we have better data and a better understanding of it. So in 6th grade, if you looked at, let's just talk about last year. I did have the year before, the 21-22, just so you can have a comparison there. So even when we had 21-22 of IMASA, we were still lower than the state in reading in middle school. Okay, 6%, 8% lower than the state. If you look at last year, we did MAPS, and we had a decrease from beginning of the year to EOY, a decrease in all the areas, which was very concerning. So you had a 3% decrease a 12% decrease for 7th grade, and a 9% decrease for 8th grade. So this year, we wanted to go back to IMASA, and we do have the state average that pops up very easily. And again, testing is not done yet. So right now, we have 18% is Snell proficient in math in 6th grade. No, this is reading, reading. And the state is at 28. So right now, we're at 10% decrease, or 10% lower than the state. And then you have at 7th grade, you have 14% proficient at Snell, and then the state right now is 36% proficient. It is going to change a little bit, but I don't think that much. So right now, that 7th grade class is very concerning. They're at 22% below what the state is at. And then you have your 8th grade, which is 15% were proficient, and the state was at 35. So that's about 20% lower than the state. So let's move on to grammar or language usage for IMASA. Next page. So we have 6th grade. Let's just talk about last year for MAPS. You had a 2% decrease from beginning of the year to end of year. And if you remember the scores for elementary, did we see any decreases at all? We did not. So again, it's concerning. Usually you do not see a decrease. Sometimes it's somewhat stagnant, maybe 41, 42, 43, somewhat stagnant, but usually you don't see a decrease. So we had a 2% decrease in 6th grade. As in 7th grade, we had a 10% growth, and then we had a 8% growth in 8th grade. So you can see the IMASA scores. So we are higher than the state in both Snell in the 6th and 7th grade. And right now we're 1% lower in 8th grade. And then we'll move on to math, and I'm sure you have an idea of what that looks like. So we have a decrease in the 6th, 7th grade from last year, from BOY to EOY. And then there was an incredible increase for our 8th grade, which was our 2% increase, which we were excited about. And then we go on to our BOY, IMASA, and you have our we are 1% higher right now in the state on our BOY for 6th grade, 5% lower than the state in 7th grade, and 2% lower than the state in 8th grade. So now let's move on to the high school. So we're looking at 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We're going to start with our reading scores. We're doing maps, and we have changed to stars. And we had last year from our maps, from BOY to EOY, we had an 8% decrease for 9th grade, a 10% increase for the 10th grade.
Ms. Chavita, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Why the switch from maps to stars?
That is what the school wanted to do. They wanted to go forward and move to stars.
Do you know the reasoning behind that? Since the kids
Yes.
were used to maps, or?
They're used to maps, but it's an easier assessment to analyze, the STARS assessment. And the principal had a lot of great things to say about the STARS assessment.
And is it used widely across all high schools in New
Yes,
Mexico?
it is.
Okay.
Mhm,
Thank
yes.
you.
And we have we had the 10% increase in 10th grade, a 9% increase in 11th grade, and a 11% decrease in 12th grade. And you see our STARS scores there. They're already higher than our EOY assessment from last year. So that's good news. And our last page is our math. So there is a downward trajectory in math for 9th and 10th, and even 11th. Okay, so you can see how BOY and EOY, there was no growth, a 2% decrease there. There was no growth in geometry, 10th grade, and a decrease in the geometry for 11th grade. But if you would look at the Algebra 2, look at that growth, 21% to 58. That's 30% growth for Algebra 2. So there was an outlier there. So congratulations to our teacher who teaches Algebra 2.
And how many years of math do they need? Do they need 4 years or 3?
I think it's 3.
3.
Mhm.
So could it be that these
Yes.
students who were taking this class were taking it because they wanted to? I just wasn't
Serena.
sure.
Yes. And that's it for my presentation. Any questions?
I think I have a question regarding our reading coaches and interventionists. Can they be switched over to focus on math?
Not this year,
Um,
because they're paid under the CLSD grant, which is literacy. But that's a lot of salaries right there. That's about 15 salaries.
That's a discussion we're going to have in finance, how
Mhm.
we're going to recoup those positions.
Yes,
Same with ESSER funds,
Mhm.
that salaries are covered under. Okay, thank you.
exactly. Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm just, I'm a glass half empty kind of person. And so when I see 4% proficient, I'm thinking of all the 96% students that are not proficient or where they need to be. And I'm just hoping that a plan can be developed, because I know it's not only teachers. I know, like last year at SNAL, they had a lot of changes. They had
Right.
a lot of behavior
A lot of
things
factors.
going on.
Mhm.
But also, getting support from parents.
Yeah,
that
they're our
they're
natural partners.
Yeah,
Mhm.
making that team
I
connection to
agree.
help our students.
I agree. And I know at Bayard, if you were to look at, let's see, Bayard has a math interventionist that we pay from Family Income Index, Mr. Rosa. And if you were to go and, let's go ahead and look at their, turn to page 3. If you'd like some evidence of what a math interventionist does. If you look at their EOY, what? Oh. We have, where is it? 5th grade math. We have 0%, and I know they have higher, 4% here. So I know they do have higher scores coming through, because I've seen some of the scores coming through recently. And it doesn't show here, but it does show in the lower tiers that they are coming from the red and moving to the yellow. It's pretty evident. So math intervention does help. So I would love to see some math interventionists in our schools, and I think that's a great idea, is using some of those literacy coaches to stay with our schools and focus on math.
Ms. Trevita, another question I have is, are we sure Carnegie's the way to go? I
No,
know
I'm not sure.
iReady is used in the elementary, and
Mhm.
maybe there needs to be some alignment there
Right.
too.
We'll look into that, but no, I'm not sure if that's the way to go.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on that? That's a lot of data.
I
It's-
like data.
I know. And anyone that knows me, I have been ongoing on this, that we have spent absolutely massive amounts of money in language arts. And math across the state has been, the scores have always not been as good. And I think on a state level, we need to get some help there as well to also have those math scores increase on a state side.
Thank you.
So this is where we flipped our agenda here. So we've got update here, family engagement and food programs.
85 families attended from Cobre High School. 19 families attended from the Cobre High School for their open house, and that estimated 8% for them. SNOW had a total of 88 families attending for Summerfest, which was 47% for them, and for their open house, it was 31 families that attended for their open house, which estimated out to 17%. Bayard had a total of 60 families that attended for Summerfest, and as you can see, it was 47%, and for their open house, it was 46 families that attended, which was 34%. Then for Central Elementary, we had 65 families attending for the Summerfest, which came out to 66%, and for their open house, it was 42 families that attended at 42%. For Hurley Elementary, it was 45 families that attended for the Summerfest, which was 63%, and 49 families attended for open house, which came out to 66% for them. San Lorenzo Elementary, they had 8 families attending for the Summerfest, which was 17%, and 28 families attended their open house, which was 60%. And then we had 40 families from the Silver District and 5 families from Calvary Christian attend for the Summerfest this year. And we also had students from Tiercy, Lordsburg, Las Cruces, and Deming all attend. So. And then for the food programs, we do have the commons setting up over there next to Bayard Elementary, where the special needs building used to be. Right now, they are done setting up their shelving, and they're starting to do their refrigerators and freezers, and they're going to use the food pantry as their main, where they package the food, and they have people in line to package for them, so that will be the main center for distribution for them.
Is there still, I know there was talks in the past about every school having a food pantry. Is that still an option, or?
I think that they plan on still having that as an option, but Bayard is going to be the main center, and it's going to be open most of the time, so that the families that are at work or they can't get to it at the times of the food pantries at the other elementaries, that one is where they can go.
Okay.
For after work, or if they're, for some reason they can't make it to those designated areas at the times that they have for them. And then it says something on here about intern. I'm not sure what that was.
I think in the past we talk about career pathways and then possible internship programs with our students. I think it was presented at another board meeting.
Is that the innovations grant?
No, it was separate from this, like middle school, elementary students. It was mentioned in another board meeting.
The innovations right now is really focused on the high schools, so I don't think it would have been mentioned in that context.
No, because I think it was more middle school, like career pathways was what we were talking about.
But it doesn't keep us from putting it part of the innovations, and I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay. And then I just wanted to see if you had any upcoming events planned.
So the trunk or treat we're planning on doing, and Mrs. Begay and Artie actually came up with a good idea to have it during the homecoming game. That we thought that would be good, and Mr. Corey agrees that that was an excellent idea. So we decided that we're probably going to do that. So probably here in the next couple weeks, I'll be sending out a email to the principals so that each school can have their own, trunk or treat there, and it'll be behind the high school. And I already talked to Mrs. Meeks about it and let her in on that conversation. And so it's something that we're still going to be getting together, but it'll be behind the high school and instead of in front of the high school like we did last year.
Okay.
So.
And any talk about maybe a food drive like last year, like around the
Oh,
Thanksgiving?
for Thanksgiving, yes, that'll happen as well, yes.
Okay.
And then we're also planning on something for Christmas, so,
Okay.
like a tree lighting, something like that,
All right.
so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had a question as well.
Okay.
In the Summerfest, you had clothing available for students.
Yes.
And is there going to be a continuation of that?
Yes, there's still gonna be a clothing closet, so that any families that are in need, they can go and they can get it. And it'll be there with the food pantry. It'll be in the same area as the food pantry. So.
And that'll be at each school or just?
No, that will just be there at the parent center. I'm not sure if each school has their own. To my knowledge, I think that some of the elementaries, I know San Lo had something pretty similar to that, and I think the middle school might, but I'm not 100% sure as to what the other schools have. But I do know at the parent center, we are gonna have a clothing closet there as well, so.
Thank you.
Sir.
And then, Ms. Villa, if you have time, I attended a conference and I'd like to meet with you. This district had great family engagement ideas, and so they presented their data academically too, and so I'd like to, they had some amazing ideas, kind of similar to our community size.
Okay.
So if you have some time, I'd like to
Yeah.
meet with you.
Yes, most
All right.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that moves us on to technology update with bond money.
So presenting for you is Caitlin Church.
Madam President, gathered board members, you gave me a little bit of money to work with, and it's already spent. Out of the $750,000, after conversing with the other administrators, both in the buildings and here at the central office, I've kind of narrowed it down to 3 very specific projects I'd like to use that money toward. First is interactive flat panels for the elementary classrooms and other classrooms as we have panels available. I've budgeted that out at about $190,000 for 100 panels. So more than enough to cover all of our elementaries and put some in some of the middle school and high school classrooms as well. Secondly, student Chromebooks. Chromebooks have a shelf life. That's because Google says, as of this date, you will no longer get updates to them. That is coming up in 2026, 27 for us. And Chromebooks are expensive, but they're not as expensive as laptops. Budgeted amount is $285,000 for replacement of all the Chromebooks over the next 4 years for all of our schools. And that would start a budget, or a replacement cycle program where every year after this initial 4, we would start replacing Chromebooks at a campus. It would also bring down the total cost as we look into the future. Right now, the number I got for that $285,000 is based on a $285 per Chromebook price that one of our vendors passed on to me. And finally, the biggest chunk of money that I do not want to see spent is for new staff laptops. The HPs that currently are being used by our teachers and administrators were leased, and that lease comes up this June. I contacted the lease company to find out how much it would cost to buy out the devices at the end of our lease. Our lease is a fair market value lease, which means at the end of the term, if we want to buy them, they can charge us anywhere between 25 and 40% of the total cost that they financed for us. That's anywhere between $130,000 to $170,000, depending on how generous they want to be. And that is for a set of laptops that have problems. I have, in just my couple of months here, have seen laptops, the battery just die. No reason. Worked fine last night, brought it to school, plugged it in, hit the power button, and nothing happened. So, at this point, I have not decided whether to buy them, just put them all in a box and send them back, or to buy them out at the end of the lease. The reason I have not decided this is because of a statement in the lease about the return of the systems. And it says that they have to be in average sellable condition. And that average sellable condition means that the system is immediately available for use by a third-party buyer, user, or lessee, other than yourself, without the need for any repair or refurbishment. All equipment must be free of markings other than those placed at our request. You will pay us for any missing or defective parts or accessories, and for any loss in value resulting from the failure to maintain the equipment. And elsewhere in here, it includes manuals, accessories, and other items as part of the laptop. That means all the laptops better have a manual with it. All the laptops have to have a charger. All the laptops have to be sticker-free and look like they just came off a showroom floor. So, what do? Do we pay for these laptops because we're going to pay for them one way or another and get brand new ones that are not leased, that are ours, and we are free to modify as we choose? Or do we try to get these ready to send back and hope they don't charge us an arm and a leg when they find out that there's no manuals, that some of them still have stickers on them, whatever. So when everything is said and done, if I go to the max budget in each category, that still leaves $25,000 in reserve from the bond money. So that gives us a little bit of a cushion in case there is a problem and we have to think outside of the box to finish a project. But with these numbers and in the current financial situation the world's in, I am pretty certain these numbers will remain solid for at least the next year, if not two, especially on the price of the Chromebooks and the flat panels. Any questions?
I have a quick question. So do you know do you have an estimate of how much it would cost to get new laptops for the teachers? And
New laptops, I've got quotes that have come in for anywhere from $180,000 to $250,000.
And how long would those be viable?
Well, if we go with the Dells, we're looking at about 4.5 years. I'm sorry, cost max were just unfeasible in this bond.
If you carry the cost of Max in terms of everyone I've owned has lasted well over 10 years.
I completely understand. I've got a Mac from 2011 that I still use.
And it gets updated and the software is there and you don't have to
Absolutely.
pay anything for the software. So I think the upfront cost is overstated in terms of impact. And if you look at the cost per year in usage, it's a lot cheaper.
Well, when you're looking at a amount of money that is limited, you have to look at that upfront cost a little bit harder than the cost that we might save down the road, because it's the cost right now that the vendor's going to want to say, "Oh, pay me."
Yeah.
I think that's more of a long-term goal to get to that point.
Absolutely.
I think the short-term goal would be, in in my opinion, terminating the lease, I've always thought that was a bad idea, and it is
Well-
proven to be, and
Well, after reading the lease, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have worked on lease agreements for schools, and most of those come with a $1 buyout at the end of them. Most of them come with statements where the average daily use of a product is taken into account if you want to return the product at the end of a lease. This lease does neither of those.
Well, and the teachers didn't even get their monitors. They got
No.
their laptops, but not the monitors that were
You're absolutely
promised
correct.
to them that were sitting in our
You're-
IT
You are
room.
absolutely correct, and those monitors are part of this lease. So it boggles the mind as to why anybody would have even looked twice at this lease, much less signed it.
and again, I am so grateful you are here.
Well, I am grateful to be here. I have really developed wonderful relationships with the teachers, with the administrators, and I'm glad that y'all are allowing me to move your technology department into the 21st century.
Thank you.
Thank you, we
Thank you.
appreciate it.
And I wanted you to present because I had previously told the public that we do a public meeting so they could have input. But it seems like this money was already going to be spent. So thank you.
Thank you. So that moves us on to update on Equity Council from SPED.
Madam President, members of the board, and Mr. Corey. I did email the Equity Council members from last school year, last week. I also contacted PED to try to get SharePoint access so that I can work on the requirements through PED. I also created a Equity Council application that we can post on our website and also share with individual schools so that we can try to recruit more members from the community. We do have, I think, about 5 or 6 employees that are on our council, but we only had 1 community member, so I'd like to increase that. We can have up to 15 members, so I'd like to get some more community involvement for that. And so far, that's kind of where I'm at. Waiting really to get PED access so I can kind of figure out what I need to do next and get some training on what they require of us, so.
Thank you. And maybe you can incorporate your new group. Maybe you can get some volunteers from there. Okay. Thank you.
So that moves us on to safety and security update.
So safety and security, we've got 2 schools that have currently, we're almost complete with their security systems, and that being Bayard Elementary School and Snell Middle School. I've been able to share with some of you what that looks like, and those systems are very impressive. Sounds like we've already had some good use out of those from our administration, which makes me very excited to hear that. We have not received any training. We have not received a lot of the things that we need, but it's already neat that we're able to use the systems the way they're intended. So that just shows you how user-friendly they are. So we've just received some more money from the state, and Frank, help me, were they?
We received about $180,000 for security and about $120,000 for maintenance.
So what was, I'm sorry, the name of the funds coming in?
It's from House Bill 505, and it's from the Public Schools Facilities Authority, PSFA.
So our plan with one of those is we would like to get our high school, not a full system, because being mindful that You know, hopefully that school building will be, you know, out of service soon. But get them a system that's going to help them with the problems that they're having currently. So we'd like to get them some cameras in very key spots and some environmental sensors as well to help them. So that would be definitely something that we would like to get done this year and quickly. Also, I wrote a grant last year for $500,000, and we'll find out 1st of October if we were successful in that, and that was all for security. And so hopefully, one of those top of the agenda items on that one was a walkie-talkie radio system for all employees in the district. And so we've talked about this having walkie-talkies for all of our employees. So in a safety situation, those have proven to be, you know, the number one thing that staff members can have to help facilitate in really any situation. We had an incident at our high school that our security officer had a walkie-talkie that is on Bayard Police's channel and was able to immediately contact Bayard Police through a radio, and their response time was phenomenal because it usually takes a while to go through central dispatch back around to them and then to us. And so, of course, knowing all of these things, we're already proving to ourselves what a good idea that all of these systems are to have in place. And it's going to solve a lot of our problems as far as, you know, we have a key issue in our district as far as keys that have been issued to people who knows how long ago, 20 years ago, that still have keys to our facilities. When these systems come online, you know, this will eliminate all of those problems because everything's on a digital key system. So if an employee, of course, no longer works for us, or say a coach, say anybody, a contractor, we just disable that key, that it no longer works in our district, and then new keys can be issued to whoever we want to. So the systems, the plan, of course, is for all of our schools eventually to have all of these systems in place, as well as this office and our warehouse. So 8 buildings are in the works or plans for that. It just boils down to the, you know, funding when it comes in and being able to get those systems online. So that's kind of a little update that we have going on. Hopefully, if I was successful in my grant writing efforts here October 1st, that would be a huge chunk to be able probably maybe to bring on 2 more schools at least and our radio system. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be successful on that grant. And then these smaller pieces of money coming in, we're of course using those to try to, you know, put them in areas that we're going to need the most help to help our administration with the problems that they're having. So that's kind of the current plan on safety. You guys have any questions?
Mr. Corey, we have any idea about more security officers? Are we just looking at the cameras and the key systems, or?
So again, everything that's been coming in is, we can use that for adding security systems, but we have not received any funding that we could add personnel as far as extra security guards.
That kind of addresses one of my questions, because I see that the security guard is split between Cobre and Snell, and the preference would be obviously one in each of the schools. But I was in Snell the other day. I'm sorry that Ms. Begay left, but I'm glad Mr. Sanchez is here. And I saw that kind of the monitors at work. There was a student that hadn't come back from going to the restroom for a little while, and so they tracked down the camera, and kind of, it was really cool to see it acting. And the whole school has a much more in-controlled atmosphere than it did last year. I mean, the difference is just absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. And so my thank you to Mr. Sanchez, Ms. Begay, and all the staff there. As you can see by the grades, it definitely shows the impact in the grades. Those are the ones that we really need to concentrate on and pick them up. But and it was cool to hear the radios. It was immediate contact and resolution.
Yep.
Okay, so that moves us on to public input items of concern. I don't see any.
Actually, I have one as a parent. My son and other students are in dual enrollment with Western, and they're doing coding. And coding, there isn't any venue for them to do the coding on the computers here that they have to participate in that class. My son is in it, and he hasn't received anything. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so that moves us on to item 9, executive session. Notice is hereby given so that the Cobre Board of Education will meet in executive session for the following purposes. 1, limited personnel matters as permitted under Section 10-15-1H2 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so that legal counsel can update and advise the board regarding the status of an investigation of complaints against the superintendent and possible terms of severance of superintendent's contract. 2, pending litigation as permitted under Section 10-15-1H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically so that legal counsel can update and advise the board regarding Teresa Holguin versus Cobre Consolidated School District Board of Education et al. D 608 CV 2023-00192.
Madam President, I move that we go into executive session for the reasons listed.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Vice President Begay,
Yes.
myself, yes. Secretary Terrazas,
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We're in executive session at 6:47 p.m. Our executive session for statement affirming that no action was taken in executive session and that discussions were limited to personnel matters and pending litigation as specified in the agenda.
Madam President, I move that we go back into regular session.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Vice President Begay?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Secretary Terrazas?
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana?
Yes.
Okay, we are back in open session at 8:10 PM. That moves us on to action items.
Madam President, I move that we authorize the board president in consultation with legal counsel to negotiate terms of severance of contract with superintendent as discussed in executive session.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Vice President Begay?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Secretary Terrazas?
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Madam President, I'd like to table item 3, authorize legal counsel to proceed with legal strategy as discussed in executive session regarding the Hoageen versus Cobre Consolidated District Board of Education, D-608-CV 2023-00192.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Ms. Dean?
Yes.
Vice President Begay?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Secretary Terrazas?
Yes.
Mr. Guadiana?
Yes.
Motion passes. That leaves us to adjournment.
Madam President, I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:12 PM. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye. Have a good evening.